Hey guys. So in my last lesson, I did an unscripted version where I said I was just kind of being raw and give a real talk. And this one's going to be the same way, I think. I'm going to try as much as I can, though, to make those jump cuts a little cleaner. So I had a very interesting last 24 hours. So this morning, the universe did this to me.
Snap out of it.
I'm a 3-6. So I've mentioned this before. One thing about being a 3-6 is that they make a lot of mistakes and they do things wrong all the time. It's kind of like where a 1-3 is a scientist and they have a script and they can learn and then experiment. A 3-6 is going to dive in and experiment over and over and over until they figure it out. And then once they do, then they become a little bit wiser, a little bit kinder, a little bit better as a person. So line sixes, or even just myself, I'm not going to even blame it on my line six myself, is I have high expectations of people in general. I expect humanity to be a certain way. I expect them to behave a certain way. And when that expectation's not met in the best way I can say, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so I go into these phases where I have to understand, I have to figure it out. I need to know, I need to rationalize it. And I said, I have a gate of rationalizations, but I'm missing the gate 61, which is the why. And the shadow state of gate 24 is psychosis. It's like literally driving yourself mad. And that's kind of what I've been experiencing these last 4 months. It's very challenging to describe what it's like to go through an emotionally abusive relationship, as I explained this before in previous lessons. And I use a lot of psychological jargon, and I say this is I bring the knowledge into it, right? So I try to support it with facts and present it in a way where I'm validating my statements. And I think that sometimes I just maybe need to simplify it a little bit. So I thought that is what I would do in this lesson, but I wanted to maybe teach a little bit of empathy in this, because I think when we're watching a video of somebody or we're listening to a story, it's hard to relate when you're not fully understanding the situation or if you haven't experienced it yourself. Let's talk about what is it like dating a sociopath? How does it feel like? So if you're willing, I'm going to ask you to kind of sit with me and put yourself in my shoes for a minute. And if you don't want to, then I would highly recommend it. This could be a little triggering for somebody. So don't do it if you don't feel comfortable. And I want you to think of somebody in your life at this moment that you really care about, somebody that you really, really trust, someone that you think will never hurt you. And I really hope that you have somebody like that in your life. I want you to think about how that person makes you feel in a good way. And it doesn't have to be romantic love. It can even be a friend. It can be a parent. It could be a teacher. It could be a mentor, anybody. And you have this amazing day and you're like, this person's always going to be a part of my life. There's just no question about that. And you wake up the next day and they're gone. No explanation, no note. They're just gone. Imagine how you would feel. What do you think that you would do? Most likely, you're probably going to go into a little bit of a panic, or maybe you think, well, they'll just come back, but they don't. And you're left wondering, what happened? Did they die? Did they run away? Was it something I did? Why wouldn't they tell me that they are leaving? Would you want to know what happened to them? So you search for the answers. And every time you get closer to them, it becomes more and more confusing. And then one day they show back up, but they're not the same person anymore. In fact, you think maybe it's not even them. Is this the case of the invasions of the body snatchers? What the hell's going on? They're being mean and they're telling you that it's because of something you did. I left because of you. And then on top of that, they tell you that they hate you, that you're nobody to them, and make it even worse, that they want to actually kill you. They want you dead. What do you think that you would do? Most likely you're going to start doubting yourself. You're going to convince yourself that you did something wrong. But even if you try to fix it, the more you try to fix it, the worse it gets. So eventually you just have to accept that this person's no longer a part of your life. And you have to go through the grieving process, which is never a fun process to go through. But you never get the reason why. And this happens over a span of 2 years. And you go to therapy, you do everything you can to help alleviate the pain, but you never fully get the answers. Eventually it gets easier, right? As time goes on, the memories start to fade because your brain starts to protect you. It's going to start, those memories aren't going to be as important anymore. But you see, your body does remember it. Your body holds it for you. When you were going through it, there were moments where you really thought you were going to die. And so you go into a survival mode. All your body's job is to keep you alive. And we're going to remember this forever, because we don't ever want you to get in this situation again. So you give yourself enough time to grow from it, and you think, okay, I'm good. Something happens. See a show. All of a sudden, the show creates this reaction in you where you just start crying, or you feel anger, or you get overwhelmed, or you get anxiety, and you're like, why is this show that I've never seen before causing these issues for me? Because there's something in that show that's triggering a memory that you no longer remember, but your body does, because that memory is associated with that trauma. Now that feeling can last for a day, a week, a month. You don't know, because your body and your brain are not communicating. What I went through is similar to that story. That's the best way I can kind of describe it. That's why it took me so long to really want to open up again. The last words I spoke with him was August 21st, 2021. And his last words to me, and that I'm a cunt, I'm a bitch, and he will forever hate me, over and over and over again. He was saying those words to me because he was scared, because I had found out the truth about his situation and I was threatening to expose it. Now, everybody processes trauma differently. I intellectualize it. It's a coping mechanism. Intellectualization is a defense mechanism in which a person deals with emotional stress and conflict by focusing on the abstract or intellectual components rather than confronting the emotional aspects themselves. It's distancing myself from the emotions of a stressful event, which will provide temporary relief. This is where like logic comes in handy. So some people that think that that are really based in logic and rational, this is how they detach themselves from the emotions. The problem is, though, is that I am not based in logic. I am based in instinct. My trust, my self-trust, my internal system is based on gut reactions. I've always been that way. But in that process, my instincts are going to be overridden by my survival mechanisms. Intellectualization happens as a coping mechanism because there at some point, which I have no idea what that point was, in my life, I learned the reason behind someone's action. Like, let's say if my dad did something really fucking cruel to me one day and somebody made an excuse for him at some point, and they said, well, he's only behaving that way because he had a bad day. I took that in and I was like, oh, there's a reason? Okay, well, that makes sense. So ever since then, I have believed that there must be a reason behind every action. And usually there is, though, whether it's a conscious or subconscious reaction. And so I try to always search for that reason. But the problem sometimes is that the more you know, the more destabilizing it gets. I feel like I never know enough. I'm constantly learning. And I always do learn something new. And every time I do learn something new, then I'm like, shit, I'm not as smart as I think I am. And now I have to eat my slice of humble pie because I fucked up. And I get really hard on myself and self-criticism. I put too much pressure on myself. I feel like I have to perfect everything. If I know all this knowledge, then what is wrong with me? Like a car mechanic. Let's say like you can fix any car and you're taking a long distance and all of a sudden the car breaks down and you're stuck in the middle of the desert, no water. It's like over 100 degrees. And you see the problem with the car, but you just don't have your toolbox to fix it. And you're stuck. That is what happened with A. You might be a little guarded the next time you decide to put your faith into a new person, but you know, like it's better for you if you do, because you've learned everything. I realized like, okay, if I'm going to go out there and date, I want to make sure that it's secure. I don't want to be in an insecure attachment. So what are the rules? What are the rules of dating? What do I need to do? Well, be honest, be respectful, be authentic. Okay, check, check, check. Be emotionally aware. Check. Trust the other person. Be open with them. I had tried dating prior to A but I was very hypervigilant. If I saw one little red flag, like very rarely did anybody get past the first date with me. But A was the first guy in like 2 years that I really like had gotten past this level with me. Now, also what's unique about A is that I become in a committed situation with somebody. Now, despite the fact that A said that we were never committed, that's not true. And I'm not going to allow him to like make me question that. It was a boundary that I had set. I've never gotten to a point where I fell in love with somebody and then it was ripped away from me immediately. It was like I gave him a gun. There's ammunition in this that could really hurt me. It's not like a deadly weapon. It was maybe like a BB gun, but it will definitely fucking hurt. And this person says to you, yeah, don't worry, I'll totally hold on to this. Now, this is what I did when I was open and honest with Abe. And he presented himself in a way that said, well, I'm an expert in guns. I've been to the range quite a few times. And as you grow with this person, you not only does he possess the gun, you're going to turn off that safety. I presumed I was in a safe situation. Then one day I wake up and he shoots me with it. No reason why. And of course it doesn't kill me, but it paralyzes me. I am no longer able to walk. So what would you do? You see a physical therapist. How do I reduce the pain? I'm going to take a pain reliever. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'll get a nerve block. I don't care. And all the while I'm looking to A and I'm saying, hey, can you tell me why you did that? Because that really sucked. That really fucking hurt. So not only are you wondering why this person now has shot you, your body's also remembering about the person that shot you prior as well. So my limbic system at this point, my amygdala, the hippocampus is remembering all the pain that I already went through. But my prefrontal cortex is saying, but we're here now. So this is what's actually happening. This is what's associating the memories together. Like, even though my body's paralyzed, I still feel all the pain. So my nerves nervous system is still reacting. In order for me to push through it, I'm thinking, well, since he's the one that did this, he must have the solution. So I go to him, but I hear nothing back. So the more he's reacting in a way that's not normal to what I expect, how I expect him to react based on how he behaved previously, no matter what's going on with him, you should want to have to help me because you shot that gun. Don't you have remorse? Like, don't you want to help me walk again? Because that's what people should do, right? So I finally get a hold of him and I say, hey, like, can you just tell me why you shot me? And he says, sure. I shot you because you deserved it. I did it because I didn't like the way that you were behaving. You were waving the gun in my face. You were doing this. You were doing that. And every time something reminds me of him, because it's still fresh, it's still new, I am in a dichotomy state because a part of me really wants to empathize for him and be like, something must have happened to have him shoot that gun. And logically, I know it wasn't me, but this is where we're going to get into those layers. He's not giving me the answers. So I'm going to look elsewhere. I'm going to look to the last time someone paralyzed me. What allowed me to walk again? For me, that was human design. So I pull out the instruction manual and I realize, shit, I have myself some IKEA furniture this time around. I don't even have, nothing's coming pre-assembled for this one. And I'm looking at the instructions, but I'm realizing like I'm missing some pieces here. Where the fuck are all the screws? And these screws are like rare. Like I can't find them anywhere else. Again, I'm going to just keep looking to him. And then other shit starts happening in life, right? So not only can I not walk, but then I'm told that I have to move. I have to move and I have to move fast and I have to move now. And I just get to a point where I feel completely powerless. And so I need to find my power. I need to take it back. So after getting through one hurdle, I reach out to him again, asking for help. I try to do it in a kind way. And I'm like, okay, he'll give me the screws. He's got to. I mean, it's been 4 months. I have put together the table. I've laid out this foundation. I've given him the opportunity so many times. He's got to do it because according to the instruction manual, we should have this beautiful fucking table. And on top of that, I'm calling customer support. And IKEA is sitting there saying, well, it's because we did give the screws to A. He's just too scared to give them to you. Now, this is in relation to all these tarot reads that I've had. Trying to find support, trying to make the sense, trying to intellectualize it, trying to understand him. Oh, he's scared. He cares about you. He wants to reach out. He wants to connect. He really wants to give you those screws. But in order to do that, he has to build his own chair and he's not ready. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm pressed for time though. I don't have any more time. So I'm just, and I feel hopeless and I feel helpless and I'm crying and I'm stressed and I'm getting angry and I'm feeling all these emotions because I don't know. And I'm feeling all the emotions from the last time I was in a pile of shit. And I feel like the one thing that I needed to help me isn't helping me. I'm a spiritual person. Where is my gut instinct? How can I trust myself? Nothing's working out the way it's supposed to. I don't understand. I feel like he should answer me. According to the instruction manual, he should answer me. According to the customer support, he should answer me. According to psychology, he should answer me. What did I do? All because I thought I was doing the right thing because I cared about somebody. And the last person I loved did the really shitty thing to me. Now I said, a little different, of course, right? And this one was so quick. I'm running full pace and all of a sudden, bam, and I dropped. This is not a humane thing to do. What is his reasoning for, it doesn't matter. It's just not okay. In any kind of perspective, it's not okay. I expected him to give me the screws when I should have just gone and bought them out myself. But I was just so scared. I didn't know what was going to happen if I did that. And on top of that, I was sad. I was grieving. I just wasn't allowing myself to feel the grief. And when you have complex PTSD, just because you refuse to feel the emotions, your body still wants to feel it. You know, our DNA is responsible for a lot of the why we act the way we do, because even how your brain works is based off the coding. Your computer system has to be coded for it to work. So depending on what that code is, it's going to work in a different way. So for me, like I said, I have a predisposition for re-experiencing when it comes to PTSD. This means like my family line has experienced a lot of fucking trauma. So much so, and that it's each year or each person that experienced it, it's stacked on top of the other. And I got to inherit that. Whatever epigenetic was around it that turned on that gene, it's protecting me just in case, because we don't want her to go through what all the other ancestors went through. And I know of the trauma my family went through. I did ancestral research. I think it's amazing and something that I think everybody should do. I mean, to have 3 women that suffered persecution for being a witch, one that died, you know, it's no different. It's just that it's a modern version of it. I'm being told who I am by somebody else, and they're saying there's something wrong with me. So not only am I dealing with my trauma, but I'm dealing with all my past trauma too. And the one thing that I feel like should be able to get me out of it has betrayed me. Like the universe has betrayed me. My spirituality, my gut instinct, my trust has betrayed me because it should never have gotten me in that position. I should have never gotten myself shot. I should have known better. So on top of having a predisposition, though, for re-experiencing, I also have a higher predisposition for empathy. I have the ability to empathize even within the worst situation, because I'm going to say, like, okay, I know like A shot me, but I also know that he's had his own trauma and I don't think he really meant to do it. I just need him to tell me that and then I'll be okay. So my logic side is fighting with that empathy side and fighting with the limbic system. So all these different systems are just like ping, ping, ping off of each other. And I can't find a middle ground. Okay. So that's kind of where we're sitting. So where did I have this epiphany happen? So over the weekend, I did reach out to A again, and I haven't reached out in a while. And I did, I slipped up. I did. Because I was starting to get really scared. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try again. Maybe he'll do it now because I'm leaving. So shouldn't he want to? But my gut is saying he will because he did care about me. He had to have cared about me. There's no way we fell for something that wasn't true. I knew I had the blueprint. It shows it. It shows that we were fated to meet. Why were we fated to meet if it was just to break up? I explained this in my solar return. Is because I was meant to heal from this. Well, I'm like, fuck you, astrology. I haven't healed. I am still suffering. In fact, I am even worse because I am so scared and so confused. Instead of just letting it go, I'm like, I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. So I sent another email. Okay, did you respond? Nope. After I hear from him, it puts me in this. It gives me such an uncomfortable feeling. I don't sit well with it. And I know that I'm not the only one in this. I think this is actually one of the biggest issues that we're facing when it comes to people that act in a narcissistic or sociopathic manner. I'm not saying that he's a narcissist or a sociopath. I'm saying that the behavior that he exhibited is that, and it doesn't seem humane. I mean, that's the whole point. Empathy is a huge part of being human. We expect people to want to alleviate suffering, especially if you were involved in it, but you're not doing that. Why? Why we react in a certain way? Why do we want to rush? Why is ghosting such a hard thing for us to understand? And in one way that we've been trying to rationalize this is through narrative. So this is why what I mentioned about the twin flame journey or me going to astrology to find the answers. I am looking for a narrative to alleviate the discomfort that I am feeling. And I'm going to go to the person that caused this discomfort because I feel like they can fix it. I felt for him. I care about him. So I would want to do that for him. Why wouldn't he want to do that for me? I've been thinking about this a lot, and I have a theory. There is a concept called the Uncanny Valley in social psychology. And this concept is related to how we perceive things psychologically and technologically. It refers to this eerie feeling that people get when they encounter a robot or an android or an animated character that looks almost human, but not quite human. And the closer the creations start to resemble real humans, the more our brains start to notice that something is off. And it causes discomfort or even this revulsion in us. From a psychological standpoint, the uncanny valley touches on our innate ability to recognize lifelike qualities and triggers these deep subconscious cues that we use to interpret emotions and intention. So as technology progresses, crossing into the uncanny valley becomes both a challenge and a goal, because to truly achieve lifelike artificial beings, it would revolutionize how we interact with technology, but then it also raises ethical questions. I mean, this is why there is such a strong pursuit on whether or not we should allow AI to develop emotions. It highlights, though, this intrinsic human need for comfort with entities that resemble us. It is a survival mechanism. I think that what we're experiencing when people do not act in a human way, but they look human, it puts us in an uncanny valley. We've only focused on technology, but I guarantee you, if research was done on this, that there would be a correlation between this. How do you get out of the uncanny valley? Well, one of the most straightforward methods is to increase exposure. As more you become accustomed to interacting with these robots, it decreases the discomfort. It's kind of similar how repeated exposure to something unfamiliar can reduce fear and anxiety over time. So when I'm experiencing this fear, I want to attach to something familiar. I want to attach to where I felt safe again. What am I going to do? I'm going to try to reach out to A to get him to do that for me. But this concept, though, also can cause a backlash for me. We expose ourselves to trauma, the same trauma over and over again without realizing it. And I think that we're trying to alleviate the discomfort. So I said, I felt safe with A. I felt love and warmth and care from him. But I keep asking my therapist, why did I not have the trigger warnings? Why was there no alarms going off? Am I no longer able to trust myself? One of two things have happened in this situation. Either he was true in how he presented himself, and I was okay to feel safe, and something happened to him, right? So there was a situation that happened and it just caused a ripple effect. Or he was not who he presented to be, And the trigger warning or those red flags or the alarm system didn't go off because I've been exposed to it enough times now that my body doesn't even view it as a threat anymore, which is extremely scary to think about. So I still haven't solved the problem because I still don't even understand why this happened. Last night, I thought, okay, I'm going to do an ayahuasca journey because that's usually where I feel better. One thing that's beautiful about ayahuasca and DMT is that I believe that it works even when it's done. Like you may not get it right in the moment. Something usually gets released. And last night when I had smoked it, I definitely, I had this visual experience that was very intriguing for a short time. And then I was fine. I'm like, well, that was a waste. I couldn't sleep. This is a problem too. It's like when I get anxiety, I don't sleep. So I just do more research. So I watched a video last night on Zodiacal Releasing. This is a tool in astrology that is used in predictive astrology about how you go through these significant events in your life and like it's timed out by these things called the time lords. Now this is traditional astrology. I always think like modern astrology is wonderful and I love it because, you know, Pluto's my homeboy, but in the traditional astrology, the Pluto is not part of the pack and neither is Uranus or Neptune. Maybe there's something here that will tell me why happened, what happened. Saw something that only proved even more that I was meant to meet so fucking clear. Like I'm like, son of a bitch, enough. Like this is not helping me. I'm not looking to know why we were meant to meet or we're supposed to be together. This is hurting me even more. I just want to know why we broke. The message is very, very clear. We were supposed to go through these troubles and tribulations and grow together. Fuck together. Obviously, it's not happening. I've been going to him. It's not working. I don't know. Like the DMT must have processed it because I looked it up this morning and there it was. Finally, an answer. And it was like, I could almost hear my brain click. And I felt this weight off of my shoulders that I have not felt in 4 months. And you guys, I cannot tell you how relieving it is to finally get the answer. I'm going to show you guys all of this in a minute. When I learned this, I was like, now I feel guilty. Now I feel bad because I have put so much pressure on A to give me the answers when I shouldn't have. I should have never reached out to him. Should have never expected him to give me the answers. And please do not misinterpret what I'm saying because I'm not saying that what he did was okay because it's not. How he treated me was not okay. But if he is transforming, if he's changing, whatever is happening to him during this time, whatever happened, whatever his reasoning behind it, if I would have known what I know now, which is a line I often say, I would have done things differently. I wouldn't have reached out to him once. I would have waited. I would have waited for him to come back to me if he wanted to. If not, I would still continue on my life. Because just because something's written in the stars doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out that way. Because don't get me wrong, what I'm about to share only proves more that things should have worked out a different way. It just gave me the reason of why we split and how I should have handled it differently. And there's nothing I can do about it at this point. But I can at least move forward. I can move. I can fucking walk again. Baby steps. I'm definitely taking baby steps. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to trip. Because I'm definitely going to trip because that's what emotional flashbacks are. But at least I'm more aware of them, right? Now I understand it a little bit more. Now I'm more emotionally more intelligent to understand it next time it happens. So understand, you guys, I only learned this morning. So by no means I'm an expert in this, but I do want to break it down a little bit just so you can understand my situation and have this final chapter. And I still have a lot more to learn. When I say I have a unique brain, I have a very unique brain. I go through these moments, all these line 3 moments of doing everything wrong. I have to do everything wrong. And then something in my brain clicks. And it all falls into place for me. Zodiacal releasing is used to uncover periods of peak activity or significant developments in a person's life. It is rooted in Hellenistic astrology tradition or ancient astrology. The technique divides a person's life into periods and subperiods based on the sign placements of the lots, which are calculated points in a birth chart. It cycles through the signs of the zodiac in a specific sequence that reflects the order of the signs' rulerships, aka planets, and the aspects they form to release each other, hence the name Zodiacal Releasing. AstroSeek is a great website to find your Zodiacal Releasing chart, and it offers the chart from 7 different Hermetic Lots. Periods of peak activity or significant developments. It's divided into levels. Now, as you can see here, it goes up to 8 levels, which is down to the second. So you can literally time your life almost down to the second on specific events. Level 1 is the broadest and longest period. This usually spans for many of years or even decades. It sets the overall theme for a significant chunk of life, such as career progression, major life changes, or long-term relationship patterns. Level 1 periods are good for understanding major life chapters. And you can see here how, depending on which sign it is, determines the amount of years. When you look to the left here, it's a planet. the sun is 19 years. So when you look over on the specific chart, which the sun rules Leo. So if the sign is in Leo, then it's going to be 19 years. But level 2 and below, those are the sub-periods, dividing the main period into solar segments, and it's governed by its own sign and corresponding years, but it affects you on a smaller scale. It doesn't last as long. So the timing and duration of periods are governed by different lords or ruling planets in zodiacal releasing. How they affect you will determine if the event or time period is beneficial or challenging, depending on the type of chart you have. This is called sect. So it's depending if you have a day chart or a night chart. If you have a day chart, which is when the ascendant is above the horizon, Jupiter is going to be your benefit planet, Saturn is going to be your malefic planet, and Mercury remains neutral no matter what time you're born. If it's at night, Venus is your beneficial planet, and Mars is your malefic planet. I had read 2 versions of this. It was saying that either way, Jupiter is going to be your beneficial planet if you're at daytime. Venus will always be your beneficial planet if it's nighttime. But I read that it also could be that Mars is more malefic for daytime charts because it's out of sect, it's out of your time period. And Saturn is more malefic for nighttime charts. Either way, either one of these 2 planets are going to show a challenging time. And it also depends on where it falls in the house, which you could pull a chart for the day of the event, and that's when you would analyze it even further. For zodiacal releasing, it is recommended to use the whole house system. I personally use Pleiades for my birth chart and using predictive astrology. But when it comes specifically to zodiacal releasing, it's whole houses, which is used because that's what was used in ancient astrology. And on AstroSeek, it allows you to choose from 7 different Hermetic Lots, or also known as Arabian parts. So you might hear it as part of fortune or lot of fortune. The lot of fortune will tell you about your health because it relates to the body and the ebb and flows of life fortune. Well, the lot of spirit connects to our mind and our intellect and the actions taken in life. So it relates to those career moments and endeavors that lead us to a greater purpose. The Eros has to do with love, desire, and relationships, and reflects on how our relationships are going to influence us in our life. The law of necessity pertains to obligations or necessities or those unavoided circumstances or duties that one must fight in the life. The law of victory deals with success or triumph in the areas of life we might find prosperity or one achieves recognition or victory. The law of nemesis is connected to retribution or justice or the balancing of scales. It can indicate where one might face setbacks or challenges where they must address past karma. And then the last one is a lot of courage, which relates to the bravery or the conflicts of the areas one may need to assert themselves forcefully, or where they may have to exhibit courage or face significant battles. And now when you look into on AstroSeek, you're going to see these little symbols next to specific dates. The most important time is the lot bound. It is going to be bolded, which I'll show you guys this in a second here. Then you're going to see the pre-lot bound, or the PLB, and the accumulation, the containing, and completion. It's also important to pay attention to changes in the Time Lords, as these also significant shifts in a person's life, meaning like when they switch the signs itself. Now, each stage of the zodiacal releasing, or these little symbols, relate to a specific type of event. So the pre-lot bound, the PLB, is the build-up phase. It's those moments before a big event in a movie where the tension kind of builds up and you know something significant is about to happen. And in life, this could be a period where you're preparing for a major life decision or feeling that change is coming. It's a time of anticipation and preparation. Like I said, the lot bound is the most important. This is the main event. This is the big show. And if life were a play, this would be the climax of the story. During this period, important events or decisions occur that define the chapter of this life. It's like reaching the peak of a mountain you've been climbing and everything you've been working towards accumulates here, which will bring you into the accumulation. Following that climax, the accumulation is when everything comes together and the results of the main event become clear. So if that main event was reaching the peak of the mountain, then accumulation is taking the view from the top. Attaining stage is about intense focus. It's zooming in on the crucial part of the story where every detail matters. In life, this could be a time when themes or issues from larger periods are specifically pronounced. It's a mini cycle where things are especially relevant or intense, and the decisions that you make during this time will affect the overall chapter or can make an impact on it. Completion, which I believe is usually only at the end of the entire cycle. So for my Lot of Eros, it goes up until age 123. So obviously I'm going to live a very long time. This is the wrap up stage. And this is just as the movie ends by resolving the plots and subplots in the completion phase that ties up all those loose ends. It's the period of reflection and understanding and closure. It marks the end of the current narrative and prepares you for the next cycle. So this is an example of what it looks like from my specific Lot of Eros. And this is going to revolve around those relationships. So when I said that I was making this discovery, I had this epiphany, you can see here on July 17th, 2023, I have a lot bound. This is going to represent a significant event in my life for this time period. And this is the lot bound for this whole theme. So everything that's happened before then is leading up to this event. Well, guess what day I met A? Now, him and I were actually supposed to meet on the 17th, but I ended up canceling it because I hadn't heard back from him in time. So we met on the 25th. And the even more ironic thing is that A is an Aquarius, and this lot bound is happening in Aquarius. Now, since I am a day chart, that means Saturn rules Aquarius. This could represent an event that's going to be challenging. Now, if I pull a chart for that day, you can see that Aquarius is ruling the 4th house. So this is definitely going to be a relationship that's going to have these themes rooted in emotion, because the 4th house is ruled by the moon. And if I look at where the moon is in the 9th house. So this means it's going to be also a relationship that's going to provide enlightenment and learning something from it, but at a higher level, a higher consciousness. But since it's ruled by Saturn, it means that this relationship is here to teach me a lesson. I'm supposed to be learning something from this. It's going to be a challenging time. The 5th house is ruled by children, love, creativity. On top of that, Saturn is performing in opposition to Mars, which is considered the malefic planet for a day chart. So I have the 2 challenging planets that are opposing each other. When 2 planets are opposing each other, we're looking at learning something from other people's actions. And there's a lot of projection that could be run into this opposition where one person blames another person for something. And it's usually where someone's not going to act the way that you would like them to, whatever that expectation is from what I want and my hopes and my wishes. In the 11th house, where Mars is sitting, some tension between love, which is where Saturn's sitting, in the 5th house. You also want to look at the angles of this chart as well. First, the 4th and the 7th and the 10th house are the most significant houses in the chart. And you can see that Jupiter is on the cusp of the 7th house. The 7th house represents the other. It represents relationships, those long-term commitments. And Jupiter is my beneficial planet. So you can see the contradiction in this. And the lot of fortune for fortunate events is on the first house cusp. We have this dichotomy in this relationship, like, okay, well, it's going to bring a lot of challenges and a lot of tension, but it's also going to be very expanding for me. It's going to expand my mindset. It's going to bring in some fortune. It's going to bring me in also some love and some good kindness. And there should have been, like I said, with Jupiter on the 7th house, expanded into this long-term commitment. If you look at the nodes, what's even more significant is you can see the South node is in Libra here in the 12th house. So this is actually going to represent a past life connection. Actually, we were most likely in a relationship in the past life, because it's in Libra, also represents relationships. And with the North node being in Taurus in the 6th house, represents the healing aspect of this. This relationship was meant to heal us if we would have worked things out. So this only shows that this lot bound was supposed to lead into this significant theme. And the fact of the matter is that this is the last stage of this chapter of my love life. And since this theme is in Leo, I want to look at where the sun placement is. It's in the 9th house, and that's the house of joy. I said, A brought me so much joy and happiness. I felt really warm and secure around him. So when the sun is in the 9th house, it's super happy there. And guess what? It's also in Cancer. The sun is in Cancer. So again, it's going to bring up all of these emotions for me. And this also reflects how it should impact A, because A's also got a day chart. And you can also see too how Chiron is also in the 6th house, which represents healing. So everything that I've already said, like, this just is another chart to show correlation with that. There's all these synchronicities. It's a consistent theme. If you notice as well, which is also quite significant, where we look at Leo, since this is the overall theme, what do we have going on here? Well, it's in the 10th house. 10th house represents career and purpose, which is reinforcing he is supposed to help me with some kind of purpose. So when I dive deeper into this, almost by the level 4, those day-by-day periods and the weeks and the months, there are some significant events here. So August 4th is the time that we slept together, which it moved into Cancer. And what was significant about this is that we had this big discussion about how sex, emotional connection within sex, is a very important thing. A lot bound, or a significant moment within this time period for myself. What's interesting about this is that on August 30th, I actually did an ayahuasca journey. Libra on October 25th, which again is relationships, right, or balancing of the scales, is when we became exclusive. But this was the kicker, you guys. This is what really was this epiphany. Capricorn on November 29th, you can see here is accumulation period, the day that started the fight and things ended, which was November 29th. This is the day after I met A's friend. It is in Capricorn, so Saturn. So even this period, this day, was supposed to teach me a lesson. If I would not have reacted the way that I did, which also led into Aquarius, and this is where he blocked me. So this whole time period, these 5 days were going to be attention, because it's being ruled by Saturn. If I wouldn't have been triggered by the way he was treating me, this situation might have been a lot different. And I'm not blaming myself for this by any means. In a way, Saturn's also going to make me hold my ground, because it's going to persist this resistance to it. It's going to say, like, what I've learned this far is that this isn't okay. So it's not surprising that I reacted the way I did. But the whole point is reflecting back on this and looking at the lesson this meant. What's significant about this too is that when you see these different transitions, right, at the end of a lot of these transitions were significant events as well, because I I said, like, I would go in these periods where I wouldn't speak to him and then I would be reaching out like nonstop. And it's usually around these transition points. So that's when it would bring up with this anxiety. And then this lot bound here is also significant because this was the deadline that I had given him about the closure. And I have accumulation period here on the 13th, which is when I reached out to him over this weekend because I was feeling that anxiety, which again, this is an Aries. So it's going to bring in that aggression, that passion, that overwhelming feeling, and it's determination because I'm trying to get myself to move. I'm trying to find the motivation and asking him for it. And there it was. And there was the answer. And when he did that as well, when I looked at the same day of that break, he moved into Capricorn as well. So there was a lesson that he was meant to learn as well when he went to the level 4 part of it. So now the accumulation is rounding up into the next stage of things. So as I go into the next level of this situation, I'm going back into my home base. I'm going back into Leo. This is a time where I get to shine. So I'm going to have that courage to move forward. I know that, like I said, if I leave here without hearing from him, if he doesn't want to speak to me ever again, that's on his part, right? So he didn't learn the lesson. And if he decides not to, right, he's in that containing stage. So whatever he does, starting tomorrow will affect the rest of this time. And what's really interesting too is that his next lot bound is in Leo. Said there's so much synchronicity here. And like, if he had taken this time to really be courage and stepped up, like this would have been a beautiful thing. We could have grown into it. It's just that things got so fucked up because there was a lack of communication. And I was so desperate to get that. Now, if I would have just been patient, if I just would have been like, I'm not going to say anything to him, but because I was so stuck in my trauma freeze state, in my response state, that I couldn't see clearly. My two parts of my brain were fighting. They were more concerned about trying to figure out the reason why it happened versus just letting it flow. And because I'm not, when that happens, I'm not good with letting it flow. So I fucked up. If I never hear from him again, well, lesson learned. He should be transitioning and changing during this time. He can be, and I just don't know it. And maybe he just wants to stay silent. I have no idea. Maybe he thinks I'm fucking nuts, which whatever, that's fine too. And he doesn't give a shit about me. Maybe he is a sociopath and I was just another victim. I have no idea. He was a significant part. He was the main event in this phase of mine. And it's not over yet, but it will be soon. I'm going to be moving into Mercury. And what's interesting about Mercury is that it's neutral for whether sect you are. So it is going to be ruled by Virgo. And so Virgo is exalted. So this should be a really beneficial time for me relationship wise. But what's interesting about this is that I said that A has a specific purpose. He was supposed to help me with my career. So I need to look at the lots for my career and see what it was that he was supposed to do. And when I figure that out, then I can know, because now I can map this out. The next person that's going to come into my life will be playing a role in that because I'm moving into Mercury. Virgo has to do with healing. It's a great place for like studying DNA and genetics. Like this is a great area for me. So this only reconfirms my instinct of what I have. And I can finally feel like I can trust myself. Now, I am not saying I'm healed. And I know, and this all coincides, of course, with my solar return, because I'm in the last stage of my solar, I'm in the last quarter of my solar return as well. The whole point of this year was to help me heal from a relationship that had repeated itself. Like I said, I'm not healed 100%, but my God, you have no idea. Like I seriously felt like I had a ton of bricks on me and it was just gone. Like for the first time, I am doing well and I'm okay with that. And I know I'll find a place. I'm going to move forward. Everything will work out the way it is. And I'm not going to stress about it. Okay, I lied. I'm going to stress about it. I need to find a place. But once I do, but I'm not going to be stressing about during this time anymore. So maybe eventually you guys, like if you guys want readings on this or whatever, like eventually I'll learn it. Like Chris Brennan teaches the course on this. He's local. He's a pretty famous astrologer. And he's actually the one that has brought this forward as this technique because it was part of ancient astrology. But so you might want to check out the astrology podcast. That's a great one for it. And he explains this a little bit more in depth as well. One last thing I'll mention is like when I'm deciding where to move, I've been using something called astrocartography, which I'll do a separate video on how that one works. But it's amazing because you can see how everything, and knowing like my next phase in my life. Well, when I looked at my solar return chart, if I move to the East Coast, what happens is that my ascendant moves into my descendant area, meaning that a relationship will be very significant in my next solar return as well. Not only this one, but now I have another one. And it has to do as well with my purpose. There is whatever it is, whatever I do end up doing, it will be with a partner of some sort. Whether maybe that's why I keep finding men involved in the health practices, but I think that there's a reason for that. I don't think that's a coincidence. The message is that I was meant to work with somebody that understood the body, that knows how the body works and can help me with this. And And A's chart, like I said, was very significant for that. Our composition chart is very clear in that. So whether he ever comes around or not is not really the point. I don't really give a shit what he did at this point. Now that I know that my main focus is his purpose, and I will do whatever it takes to get there, whether that be with him or without him, because I'll still get there. It does release a lot of anxiety for me, and I feel a lot better and can say I did not handle the situation right. I wish that I could take it back, but I can't. That's the whole part of growing. That's the whole part of being wiser. That's the whole part of healing, is that we're allowed to make mistakes. And I made quite a few, but I also made them because I couldn't walk. And this is where empathy comes into hand. It's almost as if like the higher version of him, like if we were still talking, I feel like he would be very proud of me at this moment, but we're not. So I have no idea. And I do hope that he's working on himself, but if he's not, again, it doesn't matter. At least all that matters at this point is that I can move forward, and I don't need him to help me walk again. If you're struggling with this, find a therapist, find an astrologer that can help you, give you some clues on this. And hopefully one day I'll be able to help you on that one too. I will never say like I will give a reading unless I'm 100% confident in my expertise in this. This is why human design, I am very, very good at human design. If you guys want to know more about your inner working or why you behave the way you are, your shadow states, or why there's repeating themes in your life, that's what I can help you with at this moment. But I won't offer a prediction reading or give you the information with the Zodiacal Releasing until I do a little bit more research. You guys got to give me like a week. Once I dive in, there's nothing that's going to stop me. I hope this lesson has helped. I know it's helped me. So thank you so much for listening. See you soon, guys.